Okay, what's up, people? All right. It's been a stressful 35, 40 minutes, I think. So y'all know how I was like shouting out mines for a while? Well, I'll tell y'all this much. Uh, I got banned on mines. I seriously got banned on mines. What the actual F? So, look, I was trying to post like notifications to mines because I know I got some people in there. But then I got an email saying my account was given a strike for something. It didn't say exactly what, but something. And then immediately got banned permanently. So if you're in minds.com right now, go ahead and try to find me. You're not going to find my account because turns out minds.com is the same as all big tech. Is there any tech that's safe? Somebody tell me that. Is there any tech that's safe? I don't think there is. Literally none. Any shoe. Any shoe. So yeah, that just happened. Here, let me actually see if I can show. Actually, I can't. Damn. Oh well. Oh well. But I'm definitely getting the word out because that's a whole load of just dumb. That is an absolute load. All right. Mines. Turns out mines is just like the rest of big tech. Apologies, y'all. I thought they were better. I really did. Okay. So I got that. Give me a sec, y'all. Okay. So yeah, that happened. So yeah, if you're on minds.com, check it out for me, please. Uh, or you could probably just leave actually. Um, because it turns out they're just like the rest of big tech. They literally banned me without giving me a good reason for banning me. No idea why. No idea. Any issue. Y'all about ready to get this video rolling, so let's just do this. All right. All right. That might do it. Nope, that won't do it. I gotta fix something. Okay, that might do it. All right, so y'all ready to do this? Um, Guyver8448, have you tried contacting Mines to find out what's happening? I tried. I got no response and no answer. So I just reported that on all the other social medias. Let them figure this mess out. If they want to do some shisty shit like this, they're not worth the time. All right, so yeah, we were gonna do a reaction. Let's do the reaction. Let's have a good okayish time. Um, Meantime, let me read what's up in the chat. Uh, Guyver, I'm here. What's up, Guyver? Marblock Stan, what's up, bro? You down for some rad drinks tonight? Yeah. You weirdo. Marblock Stan, the average 21-year-old. Okay, yeah, that's about it. Brennan Peters, hi. Ali Cravens, hey. What's up, Ali? Real awesome guy. He blasting caps. Have you ever played GTA 4? I played GTA back in the day. I got bored really fast. Don't ask me why, I just did. Guyver, have you tried contact? Oh, I've already given an answer to that one. Yeah, so apologies. The stream is starting off really, really slowly. A lot of stuff took me off guard. It was really freaking stupendously ridiculous and stupid. Whatever. All right, let's get into the video. So this is MrBallen. The monster in her bedroom was real. Mature audiences only. Well, you're all mature as far as I'm aware. So yeah, let's do this.
In a little town in the middle of America is this two-story house. It's very modest, very plain. There's nothing unique about it. And it's even set far off the road behind some trees, so you really can't even see it. But today, when I tell you what happened inside of that house, you will never be able to look at it the same way again. Be sure to stick around to the very end of today's video because we have an important "Where Are They Now" type of segment. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place. Located in the middle of America is a little town called Hartford, Wisconsin. Downtown, they have the biggest automobile museum in all of Wisconsin. They also have a bowling alley called Dave's Lanes, which sells cheap beer and the best frozen pizza in town. Around the corner from the museum and Dave's Lanes are two other very popular local spots. One is called Scoop DeVille, which is an ice cream parlor that's themed like it's the 1950s, and they specialize in raspberry sundaes. And the other popular spot is called the Mine Shaft, and it's this big family-friendly restaurant that offers comfort food and arcade games. On warmer days, you can find residents of Hartford out on the many walking trails of Woodlawn and Willowbrook, which are two big, very well-maintained parks that are right outside of the downtown area. And on virtually any day, whether it's warm or cold, you can find Hartford residents packed into the Shower Arts Center, which is a local theater, to watch the local theater troupe perform. But none of these attractions are why anybody knows about Hartford, Wisconsin. The reason
I have a feeling that for some reason the name Hartford sticks out to me in a big way, but I don't know what for. But it might not be such a good thing, I don't think. I guess I'm about to find out.
We know about Hartford, Wisconsin is because of Jessie Blodgett. Jessie Blodgett was a miracle. She was born just outside of Atlanta, Georgia in 1994 to her loving parents, Buck and Joy Blodgett. And Buck and Joy, for the longest time, they couldn't have kids. In fact, they were kind of adjusting to their reality that they would not be able to have biological children when Joy discovered she was pregnant. The couple couldn't believe it. It was like the most incredible thing that either of them had ever experienced. Joy would give birth to Jessie at home with no drugs, no doctors, just Buck, his mom, and the midwife. And when little Jessie poked her head into the world for the first time, Buck and Joy fell instantly in love with her. Not long.
Oh no, this is not going anywhere good. You know, is there something about the majority of like miracle babies being cursed at birth or something? Is that like a thing? Like, what is it? What is it? Like, is it like a God put down like a Jesus algorithm or something? All miracle children shall end up similar to my son or something. Like, Bub, getting real old. Real old. All maybe it's because I'm a dad. They're like, just thinking about what's probably going to happen is just
Long after Jesse's birth, the Blodgett family would leave Atlanta, Georgia, and move to Hartford, Wisconsin. And it was there, inside of their modest two-story home, about 5 minutes drive from the downtown, that Jesse would grow up. And it was also inside of that modest two-story home where many years later, Jesse would come face to face with a monster. Jessie was always someone the other kids looked up to. She was a brilliant musician. She could sing and she could play the piano and the violin. One of her very close friends growing up, a girl named Jacqueline Knights, said that whenever she went over to Jesse's house, she would walk in and have to yell at the top of her lungs just to get Jesse's attention because Jesse was permanently playing the piano. But Jesse.
That might be something I could try to do again. Weird. Okay. Sorry. Weird freaking thought exploded in my head when I saw that it looks like an old grand piano. And one of my better memories was like playing piano back in the day. So I'll like maybe I'll like try to get like an old grand piano like in my new house and like maybe start trying to play piano again. What do y'all think about that? Y'all let me know in the comments or in the chat, one of the two.
Jessie's musical talents were not the only reason people were attracted to her. From a young age, Jessie became outraged by bullying and unfairness of any kind. And so very quickly, she developed a very strong moral compass.
Yeah. As something that tends to be a lot more there's like a pretty true saying. Women tend to be more liberal, men tend to be more conservative. So it's understandable though, right? It really is. Because they're called the fairer side of humanity because for some reason I can't say certain words for a reason. And unfortunately, also, that's led to today where so many people live in a bubble, and that bubble's about to explode. But yeah, this isn't nothing really new, honestly. A lot of like girls, when they see these types of things, there's a much stronger emotional response. So this seems kind of normal to me so far. Nothing seems kind of out of the realm of like regularity, so to speak. But of course, we know this is a MrBallen story. Something's going to happen. We all know it.
She became a fierce defender of animal rights, environmentalism, sustainability, social justice, and ultimately ending violence against women.
No, they just had to say social justice. Just had to say social justice. Okay, what people don't understand, it seems, is that justice, like literally justice, is socially constructed by communities. But the people that believe in social justice warrior stuff refuse to accept reality that people are people. And quite usually they're utopians. And we all know what utopians are like. So I have a feeling she kind of went down the wrong way, seeing the multiple forks in the road. Where's her dad? That's my question.
By the time she graduated from high school in 2012, Jessie had become very popular amongst her peers and also amongst teachers and parents. Jessie just came off as someone who was wise beyond her years. Jessie always talked about wanting to change the world, and after high school, she kind of figured out how she was going to do that. She decided she would study to become a choir director for either a university or a high school, because through that role, she would be able to teach and mentor upwards of 100 young lives every single year. So in the fall of 2012,
I get there's noble intentions. I get it. But this is going to come back to what's going on right now. Too many people became teachers because unfortunately they live in an idealistic fantasy in their own head. So they decide to take advantage of young minds going to college and university and stuff whose frontal lobe ain't freaking developed yet. And whether or not they intend to do it is irrelevant. They're actually indoctrinating kids with stuff they ain't got no business to be talking to kids about. You're a teacher. You're supposed to teach. And what you're supposed to teach is what is the subject of whatever class you are supposed to be teaching. Okay, I'm going to try not to go on the tangent. I'm going to try not to go too hard on tangent. I'm still kind of mad about the mines thing. So, yeah. I apologize, y'all. But some stuff just grinds my teeth down to mush.
Jessie would leave Hartford and head off to the University of Wisconsin.
Okay, so the story's about her. I'm going to try to focus on the story about what happened to her, not what she was trying to do in life.
In Milwaukee, which is about an hour southeast of Hartford, and there she would enroll in their musical education program. And during that first year at the school, Jessie did so well in that program that she was offered a talent scholarship for the following year. After wrapping up her incredibly successful freshman year in college, Jessie came back to Hartford, Wisconsin to live with her parents for the summer. Now, unlike other college kids that were back home for the summer, Jessie was not treating this break like it was a vacation. Instead, she decided she would just jump right into her musical education career. And so as soon as she got home, she started her own business, teaching voice and piano and violin to kids in Hartford.
Give me a sec. I got to shut the door. Let me read the chat real quick. Brandon Peters 5 times. I was watching a video on where screws came from. how screws are made, like how it's made, or like another video on YouTube. Yeah, it's pretty incredible, you know, how many things that we kind of just take as they exist. We don't really think about where they came from, how they're made, the processes, the systems, the people, and all that. Everything behind that one object is barely given any thought, except by the super curious. Um, Brandon Peters, ice cream. I miss ice cream. Brandon Peters, arcade games. Nice. Yeah. Speaking of which, I should go check out the arcade that's downtown. They probably have quite a few games I remember from back in the day. Brandon Peters, I'm back from taking out the garbage and destroying cardboard boxes. Good job. Me, I'm going to end up like saving all of my cardboard at the new place. So I'm going to get a big, giant, like recycle bin and then like flatten all the cardboard down or probably shred it or something. You know, so that when I go like camping or something like that, I've got free kindling. Oi. Ugh. Guyver. Social justice. Of course she wanted to work at a college. Yes, unfortunately. And this goes for all parts of it. You shouldn't be teaching no ideology whatsoever in the classroom. None. That's not your job. Brandon Peters. Well, social justice is good. Simply because it's man-made doesn't mean it doesn't matter. Although being utopian is rather foolish, so I get you there. Well, the trouble is that people, you know, I remember when social justice first came around, and social justice was exactly what it sounded like. It was part of what was wanted to be a forward progress of, like, you know, our society and civilization, not the regressive crud that's going on today. And yes, utopian thinking that utopia is possible is foolish in the extreme. Simply because it's man-made doesn't mean it doesn't matter. It's not that it doesn't matter. It's that we should allow people to experience real life before they try to get engaged in anything. We really should. It used to be that, you know, your elders who had gone through life and done everything and were wizened from their experience in reality would be the ones that would lead the tribes, right? And that's how we got this far. But now we're sadly far away from that. Guyver, not in the modern destroy everything I don't agree with context. It isn't. No, it's not. It's been perverted completely. So now social justice is something else entirely in context, meaning, and intention. Brandon Peters. So what are they indoctrinating kids into? Please give an example. It's the same as like the idea of a Catholic school. It's the same. Okay. Here's my thing. I think there should not be left-wing ideology, right-wing ideology, centrist ideology, zero ideology of any kind in the classroom. None. None whatsoever. Not religion, none of that. None of it. Okay? You're supposed to go to school to get a basic education. So like history, math, science, you know, technology in some places, literature, okay, English, different languages. It should be strictly about that. And that's all. And that should extend up to the college level. That's how it should be. Anyone at all. I don't care who they are. I really don't care. My bias put aside. I really don't care who it is. If you are taking advantage of young minds in a classroom and going outside the scope of your job, you are indoctrinating children. I don't care who you are. So yeah, right now it's more prevalent. Leftist ideology is the more prevalent indoctrination in all schools. But look, the same exact thing happens in like religious schools, because they're teaching you religion and what they believe in and what the faith and all that kind of stuff is. So yeah, like, no, do away with all of that. Do away with all of it. Brandon Peters, I'm guessing you're not aware of the several times that teachers have literally said on social media, you know, we will have your children. Essentially is what they're saying. And this isn't just one or two teachers on TikTok. This is thousands. And yeah, no, definitely not. Take your derangement somewhere else. Get out of the classroom. Let's see. Brandon Peters. Well, the conservatives want to destroy everything they disagree with. Not true. Some conservatives. Correction. I've seen them do it. Even when they are told by people they know who know what they are talking about, they just ignore the facts. Yes, some of them do. But here's the thing, is that on the right, it's a lot less prevalent than on the left. Right now on the left, it's been taken over by leftism. There's no, the left has gone so far left that now it was okay for a sitting president to tell Black Americans if they don't vote for him, they're not Black. He's allowed to be racist. They're so far left now. So yeah. Guyver, it's nowhere near comparable. Not really. When you take, okay, so if you want to go down a little tiny rabbit hole, here's the thing. Right now, leftism is the huge, like, average major thing. And it's more prevalent on the left when it comes to extremism than it is on the right currently, when you literally draw the average of everything combined. Now, you can try to nitpick little tiny things here and there or whatever, but when you take the average of everything, put it together, leftist extremism is a lot larger a problem right now. That's where the imbalance lies versus the right. Trying to put it very simply, I'm probably failing. Brandon Peters. The video on screws is by machine learning. Went into history of screws. Okay, that's pretty cool. Brandon Peters, I got you. Learn from older people and experience. Yeah, back in the day, a lot of people would not even get into politics until they were much older and they had gone through life. But now, now I think both sides actually do this. Now both sides are fighting for the youth. Both sides are fighting for the youth. The youth are impressionable. Their brains ain't fully developed yet. They haven't exactly experienced reality. So yeah. But the thing is that on the right, you know, the majority of actual parents are conservative. The vast majority. The majority of the people that like are teachers in the education system and all that stuff are leftists. So parents are fighting the education system to get their kids away from leftist ideology. I'm trying so hard to simplify this stuff. Okay, guys, I'm trying hard to very much simplify it. Let me see. Guyver8448. Yeah, politics and political thinking shouldn't be involved with young kids. Exactly. Guyver, outside of like very objective, this is what this ideology is, here are the others. So I would say that it's been so far skewed. Like all the different ideologies are so far skewed. Well, except I don't know, some right-wing stuff hasn't really changed over the years. Actually, it's become more liberal than right, I guess you would. So basically, the new right is more liberal than anything else. That's what it looks like, which is freaking weird to me. Still weird. So yeah, it's hard to, because people can just nowadays people can just make an article up of something and say, I think this is true, but it's an opinion piece in small print. And people will just believe it because people are lazy. That's the bottom line. Unlucky Meteor. Sup, Blaster Capper? Thank you. What's up, Unlucky? Brandon Peters. Yeah, I'm learning stuff in math I'll never use ever. Right? Happens a lot. Guyver. It's more than several. Badger teachers are getting fired every week because of it. Yep. Unlucky Meteor. Yeah, they should not teach stuff in K through 12 except science, math, English history, real history, not woke history, etc. Yeah. Guyver8448. I get you. But I have to hide that comment because YouTube's given me a lot of grief recently. Unlucky Meteor. If kids want to enroll in classes for wokeism, they can do that electively in college when their brains are a little bit more developed. No, I say take it out of college completely also. All of it. Completely remove that from the education system. It should not be involved in the education system whatsoever. These kids should move on through the path of becoming an adult first, experience a lot of reality and life struggle and all that stuff before, before they start to like try to figure out what's going on in the political space. Brandon Peters, the sooner humanity gets rid of religion, the better. So much destruction brought about by the whole in the name of God thing, right? Except now the new religion that's sprouting up in a very powerful way, that's also doing the same thing every religion has always done forever. Wokeism is a new religion. You're not allowed to question it. You're a blasphemer and a heretic if you speak out against it, and you're labeled everything evil under the sun, and you're named as like an enemy of the religion if you don't believe in it. Yep, wokeism is either a cult or a religion or both. Brandon Peters, tiny hole, hey. Guyver, but what do you replace religion with? Because we need something to glue society together. So everything seemed to work out really fairly well and seemed to be going in a certain forward direction when we were going off of like, picking the best things from everything, right? So from religion, you have several different types of moral principles and ethical principles and stuff that are actually useful, right? You can't deny that religions have contributed a huge amount to what we believe, what a lot of people believe today, and a lot of the good things that we've accomplished today. Now, that's not discounting all the bad stuff that's done in the name of religion. But we can only add to that, right? Unlucky meter. When I have kids, I have to make sure I have enough money coming in to homeschool them. Not a snowball's chance in ninth plane of hell that I would let my kids go into the school system. Exactly. Brandon Peters, have you heard of Christian nationalism? Pretty crazy. They are such a mixed bag, it's confusing. Have you actually met Christian nationalists? I've met so many of them. And they are such a mixed bag, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Unlucky meteor. So add even more money that I'll have to shell out in a crumbling economy. Guyver, because most of the time it's replaced with a state, and that's even worse. Yeah, we need to decentralize hard. We need hard decentralization like time meow. Rena Harwood. In my experience, a lot of teachers go into that field to have power and control over someone, and a lot of them abuse that. Many CPS workers are the same. Yep, facts. The polls show it. Statistics show it. What's going on in classrooms and on social media shows it. It can't be denied. Brennan Peters. There are nations who are overwhelmingly atheistic and are much better off because of it, like Nordic countries. Well, here's the thing. Those countries are homogenous, Brandon. In the Nordic countries, they are like 99% Nord. They're 99% Nordic. So even if they did completely get rid of religion, they are all the exact same type of people. America is a freaking mixture melting pot. That's why they call it the American experiment, because you have literally every culture on the planet living in the same country, in the same cities, same states, everything. American culture is much different than, you can't compare the US to any other country when it comes to stuff like that. You just can't. We are such a mixed bag that you could roll dice, and that dice somehow is going to have a million different parts to it. So anytime you roll that dice, it's going to be something completely different. That's how the U.S. is. Brendan Peters, Finland. Actually, a huge amount of Finns are I think they're Catholic or Christian. They're one of the two. I forget which. Okay, I'm almost at the bottom. Landon Mullins. What's up, Landon? Guyver, that's a fair point. The Nordic countries have way less dividing them. Exactly. Brandon Peters, religion doesn't mean it's good. That simply means they're religious. Saying it's good because of God isn't true. Most criminals are Christian, at least in America, unlike 0.001% of atheists in prison. So anyway, to go back to the point of culture differences, American culture is the most unique culture on the planet because you can find everybody here. And it's the exact same country. So yeah, it's not like Europe where you can go to Spain and it's like 99% Spanish, or Germany where it's like 95% German, or Italy where there's 85% Italian and the rest is what's the I forget which other ones, but whatever. Guyver makes a good point about the religious people in prison. The majority of inmates that become religious in prison are trying to make themselves appear to be turning over a new leaf, or they're pretending like they're going to become better people and they don't. That's just how it goes. Anyway, okay, we're done with this. Let's move on back to the video. Let's get into it.
And within weeks of starting this brand new business, she had over 25 kids signed up. When Jessie wasn't teaching that summer, she was often writing original music with her friend Dan Bartelt, who was also a very talented local musician. Or when she wasn't doing that, she was rehearsing at the Shower Arts Center, where that summer she had auditioned for and landed a central role in that summer's musical, The Fiddler on the Roof. Jessie was the fiddler, and she was very excited.
By the way, if you have not been to a play or some kind of musical, like live performance musical, I highly encourage you to go check them out. They're pretty awesome. They're so much fun. And okay, maybe my memories are a little skewed because every time for me, I was having a bit of fun on the side while the play was going, if you know what I mean.
Excited about this. The musical opened to a packed house on Friday, July 12th at 7:30 p.m., and Jessie and the rest of her cast were incredible. And then the next night, July 13th, Saturday, they had another big performance at 7:30 as well. And then on Sunday, July 14th, they had a matinee performance at 2 p.m. After that matinee, Jessie and the rest of her castmates headed off to another cast member's house who had a pool, and they had a big pool party to celebrate the end of their opening weekend. And during this party, Jessie spent half of her time sitting around the pool with her castmates, and the other half of the time she spent petting llamas that were in a nearby field. Jessie would finally leave the party and get back to her parents' house sometime after midnight, and when she went,
I just love that random turn of events. Petting a llama. I love it. I love it. Petting just randomly, and he says it so casually too in the story. She went to go pet a llama.
went inside, her mother, Joy, was still awake. And so when Joy heard her daughter, she came out to the front of the house and she was getting ready to ask Jessie, how was the party? When she noticed right away that something was off about Jessie. She looked upset about something. And so Joy asked her, are you okay? And so Jessie looked like she was about to maybe go into a lengthy explanation about why she was feeling the way she was feeling. But ultimately, Jessie just kind of stopped herself and in a tone that was less upset and more just annoyed, she would tell her mom, the guys in the cast, there are these two older guys that were kind of hitting on me, and those are my friends, and I felt like they were crossing the line. It was just totally uncomfortable. And so Joy began asking some.
Okay, so for anyone and everyone, when this happens at all, and someone's trying to flirt with you, and you're uncomfortable and you don't like it, tell them stop and tell them stay away from me. And report it to everybody you know. Tell them who they are, what they do, all that info. Take it serious every time. If someone makes you uncomfortable and being all that sort of mess, straight up go the extra mile. Seriously. Go the extra mile. Okay? Y'all know me. I've been through it. It's happened to me a lot. Which is funny because people expect me as a guy to just be like, perfectly fine with it all the time. I'm not. I'm definitely not. Okay? Because I know where that kind of stuff can lead. I've been there. Yes, it happens to guys too. So for any ladies that are watching who are like, it doesn't happen to men. Actually, what's funny is that it is statistically possible it happens more to men than anybody else. It's just that men usually just shut up about it. So no, if you're a dude and this happens to you, let people know. Let people know. And then, but especially, and it's understandable why the microscopes on when it happens to women, because the fairer gender-esque, whatever you want to say, are just, let's face it, they're also the weaker ones. physically. So, yes, report it, let people know, tell people about it, and be very, very careful. Don't take no chances. Y'all know me. I'm all about safety and security. Complacency kills. Be situationally aware. Like, people letting this kind of stuff go at any point just really ticks me off, because then you're enabling. It doesn't matter if you're a victim or not. If you be quiet about it, you're enabling the perpetrators. You're aiding them in what they're doing. Don't be that person.
Follow-up questions to get a sense of how serious this was, and it just seemed like it wasn't that serious. And pretty quickly the two women said goodnight to each other, and they both retired to their rooms to go to bed. The next morning, Buck and Joy got up fairly early, around 7 a.m., and Jessie, she stayed in bed because her only commitment that day was a lesson she was teaching one of her students at around noon, and they'd be coming by the house for that lesson. And so her parents knew she was sleeping in, and so Buck and Joy, they're kind of going about their morning routine. Buck left ahead of Joy, probably around 7 or 7:30, and then at 8 a.m., Joy, right before she left the house, she brought some laundry up to Jessie's room. And so she opens Jessie's door, she goes inside, Jessie's asleep, and Joy, she puts the laundry down, and she considers going over and waking her daughter up just to say good morning and maybe goodbye. But she thought to herself, Jessie never gets a chance to sleep in. She's always got something going on, and so I'll let her sleep. And so Joy just quietly left the room. She shut the door behind her, and she headed off to work.
Recurring theme, people. Recurring theme. People failing to have a consistency. This happens so often. And that's what I mean by complacency kills. It does. Because the people who take advantage of people's complacency are the killers. Okay, I think I might be ready.
At around noon, Joy would leave her office and head back home for her lunch break. And so when she walked into her home, she was expecting to see Jessie awake because Jessie had one of her students arriving any time. But when she walked inside, the house was silent. Jessie was not downstairs. She apparently was not awake. And Joy had seen her car out in the driveway, so she knew she hadn't left. And so, kind of annoyed, Joy walked to the foot of the stairs and she yelled upstairs for Jessie to wake up. Hey, your student's going to be here any minute. And then Joy left the foot of the stairs and walked into the kitchen and made herself something to eat. After a little while, as she's finishing making her lunch, Joy hears a knock on the front door. And now at this point, Joy is really annoyed because Jessie has still not made a sound. She has not come downstairs. And so Joy, she goes over to the front door, she opens it up, and sure enough, it's Jessie's student. She asks the student to come inside and wait for a minute. And then Joy hustles up the stairs. She goes right over to Jessie's bedroom. She opens the door up. Jessie's still in bed. And so Joy runs over to her to jostle her awake. But as soon as she is standing right above the bed over her daughter, and she has a clear look down at her daughter's face, she freezes. Moments later, she would call 911.
Dr. 901, what's your emergency? My daughter is blue. I went to wake her up, and I just got hold of her for lunch, and she won't wake up.
She's
oh, my God.
Okay, hang on just a second.
Okay.
Okay, so is she breathing?
I don't think so, no. Chest are all wet. She's got, it looks like strangulation marks.
There are strangulation marks?
That's what it looks like. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on.
Joy would gently pull her daughter out of the bed and lay her down on the ground. She would put a pillow underneath her head, and then she would begin doing chest compressions to try to save her daughter's life. But it was already too late. When police and paramedics arrived moments later, they came into the bedroom and they quickly determined that Jessie was deceased. When police looked at Jessie's body, they too saw the marks on her neck that her mother had referenced on the 911 call, and they also saw the same ligature marks on her left wrist and also on her ankles. As a result of these findings, the police on scene quickly concluded that this was not a naturally occurring death, this was not a suicide, this was a homicide.
I say it all the time, folks. I say it all the time. Safety and security before anything else. Before everything else. You can't be good. You can't make a good life for yourselves unless you take safety and security as of the utmost importance. It is the top priority for anyone. Cops are always too far away. EMTs and paramedics are always too far away. Fire department is always too far away. Bad stuff happens in seconds. It's always in seconds. And then at that point, it becomes a matter of luck of whether or not you survive. Safety and security. You cannot compromise those two. Not now, not ever, not for eternity. And trouble is, majority of people are so used to just droning through the day because everything seems like it's perfectly safe, but it's not. It never will be. And a lot of people suffer because of this.
And so, as gently as they could, the police ushered Joy out of her daughter's bedroom and led her downstairs. Because at this point, her daughter's bedroom was a crime scene, and they needed to keep it pristine so they could find evidence to figure out who did this. Once downstairs, Joy was reunited with her very distraught husband, Buck, who had just come home as well. And the two of them, their life is destroyed. Their beautiful baby girl, their only child, is now suddenly gone, and it didn't make any sense. During the search of Jessie's bedroom and then also the Blodgett house at large, the police were not able to find any cord or rope or ligatures that could have been used to strangle Jessie to death.
Because somebody probably took her somewhere else and did something really bad to her and then put her back in her house. Probably. That's my guess. And that should tell people everything they need to know about the house security.
The police also noted that there was no sign of forced entry anywhere in the house, and it appeared nothing in the house was stolen. And so quickly, the lead Hartford police detective named Richard Thickens began operating under the assumption that the killer knew Jessie and targeted Jessie, that they would have known where she was in the house, they knew how to get in the house, and they went straight for her, they killed her, and they left. When Detective Thickens spoke with Buck and Joy just hours after they had discovered their daughter dead, he asked them if they had any idea who would want to hurt their daughter. And at first, the parents said, no, we don't know anyone. But after some more prodding, Buck would say, well, recently there were some tree limb cutters that were cutting limbs right outside of Jessie's bedroom window. And so maybe they looked in and they saw a teenage girl who was all alone, and they came in and they attacked her. And then Buck also said that in addition to teaching music that summer, Jessie had picked up a few hours working at a restaurant down the road. And recently, she had come into conflict with one of her coworkers who began acting very inappropriately with her. He basically would walk past Jessie and intentionally bump into her and rub into her and just get inside of her personal space. And this coworker was aware of the fact that Jessie was really upset and had already told her family. And so perhaps this coworker was disgruntled and was seeking revenge. Also, Joy would point out to the detective that the night before, when Jessie came home, she had seemed really upset about something. She had said it was about these two guys that, were hitting on her at the party, and it made her uncomfortable. But Joy and Jessie didn't really get into it. So there was something obviously on her mind the night that she was killed. Following this discussion, Detective Thickens would go out and track down those tree trimmers. He would also track down the co-worker at the restaurant, and he discovered that they had rock-solid alibis and they were ruled out as suspects. As for the two older guys, the cast members from the pool party that had made Jessie uncomfortable, Detective Thickens found them, and he very quickly ruled out one of them, but he was not able to rule out the other. His name was Randy Talley. When Detective Thickens spoke to Randy on July 15th, the day that Jessie was found, Randy would deny having anything to do with Jessie's death. When Detective Thickens asked him, where were you the night before after the cast party? Where'd you go? And then where were you this morning? Randy would tell him that after the party, he went back to his apartment, and that is where he has been the entire time until right then. When Detective Thickens asked him if there was anyone that could corroborate his story, Randy said no. He was alone in his apartment the entire time. Shortly after speaking with Randy, the police were still searching Jessie's bedroom for evidence, and they discovered her diary. And her final entry in this diary only made Randy seem more suspicious. Despite downplaying the incident that Jessie had had with these two older cast members at the pool party, after Jessie had spoken with her mom briefly when she got back from the party, she had gone up to her room and then made this final diary entry. And in it, she talks about being really upset about what these two guys had done to her. She said that these two guys were corrupting her and that they were taking what should be platonic love and perverting it into a competition. Her closing lines seemed to indicate that she might have been expecting some sort of future confrontation with these two guys. The lines read, "I am not helpless. I will recognize problems and confront them without fear. God be with me." Between Randy's lack of an alibi and then Jessie's kind of ominous final message that seemed to be talking about Randy, Randy quickly became the primary suspect in this murder investigation. But Randy's cell phone records indicated that he had not had any interaction, no calls, no text messages with Jessie leading up to her death. And around the time in the morning of July 15th, when she would have been killed, Randy's cell phone was in his apartment, far away from Jessie's house. And so while this didn't definitively mean that Randy could not have killed Jessie, because he could have just left his cell phone at his apartment when he carried out the attack, what it did mean was there wasn't any real evidence to support the idea that Randy killed Jessie. And so the Hartford police had to go back to the drawing board and try to find new leads to chase down. And
My question is, has anyone checked out her dad, though? Has anyone checked him out? I don't think anyone has so far. So, that being said, not to mention the title of the video, the monster in her bedroom was real. Ugh. Who could the monster in the bedroom be? I really don't want to suspect the dad, but quite honestly, if you want to do a thorough if you want to do like a very thorough kind of look into things, you have to suspect everybody. And you have to check into everybody to make sure that everyone is airtight in every way possible. All right, let me read the chat real fast. Brandon Peters, it's crazy to think how big the U.S. is. The entire continent of Europe, basically. The entire continent of Europe could fit inside the U.S. about 2 times, I believe. Brandon Peters, 25 kids signed up. Nice. Skyver, you guys have states that are bigger than some European countries. Yep. Brandon Peters, I've been to a couple plays. Pretty fun. Also, Badger, you cheeky devil. Laugh out loud, having fun on the side. This was during my much younger days, of course. Brandon Peters, wait, they had that as a pet? Huh, okay, cool. Yep, got to nip that in the bud real quick. Yes, always. Don't leave any room for stretching boundaries. Brandon Peters, it happens to everyone, definitely. Yep. Guyver, men are way, way, way more likely to get assaulted by a stranger. Women tend to be assaulted by people they already know. I think that's accurate. Brandon Peters says, no such thing as an innocent bystander for the most part. If they can help, they should. Yep. Brandon Peters, man, I'd at least peek inside the room to check on her. Oh boy, it's going to be bad. Oh, she's blue. Geez, R.I.P. Brandon Peters, police doing their job. Nice. Unlike other cops like in Texas. Yeah. What's funny is that in Uvalde, Texas, during the whole defund the police thing, a large amount of cops resigned. A large amount. And guess what you're left with? You're left with people that don't want to do the job or are scared to do the job. And to them, it's just a job. Just give me a paycheck, I'll hold a space, and that's it. That's all they're doing. That's what you get when you defund the police. If you're going to have police, make sure you screen them. Make sure you get shepherds and sheepdogs, not wolves or freaking sheep that are trying to wear a dog's hide. It doesn't work out that way. Brandon Peters. Dang, that last line in her book, haunting. Yes, very much so. Makes me question a lot of things. Brandon Peters. Wow, over 2 times, man. USA is really big. Yes, it is. All right, let's continue.
And on July 16th, just 24 hours after Jesse was discovered, the police would get a huge lead. Before we finish our story, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Current. Banking is still one of the very few industries that has yet to be from my current tag include, and you'll choose which ones I like. Current sponsored video. Again, the code is 3 days before Jesse was killed, a young woman about the same age as Jesse, named Melissa Richards, decided to take her dog for a walk in a park in Richfield, Wisconsin, which is a small town about 10 miles southeast of Hartford. When Melissa pulled her car into the dirt parking lot that connected to the walking trail she intended to go on, she noticed there was only one other car parked in this lot, and it was immediately on her left, pointed nose away from the entrance. It was this blue minivan. And so as she's driving in, she looked over at it and she noticed the driver had their legs poking out of the driver's side window as if they were laying down across the front seats. And so this didn't really matter to Melissa, but she definitely took note of this person in this van. And so she drives past the blue van on her left. She drives all the way across to the other side of the dirt lot. She parks her car. She hops out. She gets her little dog, Remy, out of the car. And then she walks away from the parking lot and heads onto the walking trail into the woods. The trail that she was walking on was basically a big loop that ended at the entrance to the dirt parking lot. And so when she was done with her walk, she would be walking directly across the entire parking lot, which would mean she would be walking on foot past that blue minivan if it was still there when she was done. And so Melissa does a 30-minute loop. She gets all the way around and she reaches the entrance to the parking lot, and she sees the blue minivan is still parked where it was, except the driver no longer has their feet poking out of the window. Now she can't see if there's anybody in the van at all. And so Melissa, again, she's not really thinking about this. It's crossing her mind, but she's not on edge about this van. And so she lets go of the leash of Remy, and Remy starts running to the car, and Melissa pulls out her key fob, and she opens up the trunk to the car, and so Remy runs over, he leaps into the car, and then Melissa just continues to walk across the lot towards her vehicle. And when Melissa walks just far enough that she is past the blue minivan, she turns to look at it, and she sees the person who had been sticking their legs out of the window, the driver, is now sitting in the passenger seat of the blue minivan. The door is open, and this person is sitting there staring at Melissa. And so Melissa, she makes quick eye contact with this person and immediately averts her gaze. She doesn't want to be rude, and she just keeps on walking towards her vehicle. But again, she's not worried about what's happening with this van. She's just aware of this person and this van. But after averting her gaze, she hears the sound of someone running towards her from behind. And so she whips her head around and she sees the same person who was sitting in the passenger seat, the driver of this van, has run up to her. And as soon as she turned around to face this person, they came to a complete stop. And they were just staring directly at Melissa. They were only about 10 feet apart. And Melissa kind of reflexively said, "Oh, you scared me." And then Melissa just turned her back on this person and continued walking towards her vehicle. And after taking only a couple of steps, once again, she heard the sound of this person behind her start running towards her. And immediately, she whips her head around again and again. This person comes to an abrupt stop as soon as Melissa's looking at them. Except now Melissa knows something's not right. And worst of all, she looks down, and in this person's right hand, by their hip, is a knife. A split second later, this person charges Melissa. They tackle Melissa to the ground. Melissa smashes down onto her stomach, and she's pinned on her stomach. And this person, they attempt to stab Melissa, but Melissa fights back like mad. She turns over and she grabs the blade of the knife and she wrestles it away from her attacker, and she pulls the knife under her body and she puts it under all of her weight. And the attacker is so surprised that this has happened, they actually stop for a second before kind of reaching down and trying to yank the knife out from underneath Melissa, but Melissa is not letting it go. And so finally the attacker just kind of sits up on her back and says, "Can I just go?" And Melissa says, "No." But at that exact moment, the attacker leapt up and started running back towards the blue minivan. And so Melissa, she's not waiting around to see what they're going to do. And so she jumps up. She's still got the knife in her hand. Her hands are completely ruined. Melissa runs to her car. She leaps inside. She throws the bloody knife onto the floorboard of the passenger seat. After making sure Remy is in the car with her, she shuts the back hatch. She locks the doors, and then she turns around and she sees her attacker in the van peeling out of the lot, driving away.
Okay, so someone with a knife running up to you, that's a threat. That's a threat. At that point, okay, as soon as they ran up to me, then again, okay, yes, I'm trained. I get it. I'm trained, whatever. But as soon as they're running up to me and I see that blade and they're running up to me with a blade and they're acting weird, I'm armed. I am armed. Do not approach me further. And then with that other hand, I'm calling the cops right there. And if they keep approaching, they're brandishing a deadly weapon. Therefore, I will escalate my response. I would rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6 any day of the freaking week. And it completely just boggles my brain that people decide to be willing victims. If you are defenseless, or you choose to be defenseless, you're a willing victim. You are a sheep to slaughter. This woman, luckily, she fought back, even though she was unarmed. She fought back, but it could have gone the exact opposite way very quickly. Very quickly. Because if they had gotten that knife into her neck, it was over. If they got it into her ribs, it was over. Luckily, the person that did it didn't have a lot of experience with it, didn't know what they were doing, and were just an idiot. Thankfully for that.
And so Melissa is relieved, but she also just wants to get the heck away from where she is right now. She's totally alone. And so she fires up her car and she drives to the hospital.
Also, a bit of a tip for y'all. Never open carry. Unless you're out hunting or something, never open carry. People think open carry is a deterrent. No. It makes you an immediate target for anyone. It makes you a target of anyone that wants to make sure that they can do what they want with impunity. That's why you conceal carry. Always conceal carry. Don't open carry. It's a really bad idea.
Getting 15 stitches to repair the 3 very deep cuts in her hands, Melissa was transferred to a recovery room where a man named Joel Klossing, who was a detective with the Washington County Sheriff Department, he came into the room and he took down Melissa's statement. Now, Melissa was very shaken up about what had just happened. She had no idea who this person was, why they attacked her. But despite being shaken up, Melissa had the most incredible memory of the event. She knew exactly what her attacker looked like, all the little details, and she knew everything about the vehicle, to include the fact that she knew it was a Dodge Caravan minivan. So she knew the exact type of car, and she guessed it was probably from the years 2000 to 2002. And so Melissa gives this incredible statement, and Detective Klossing, he goes back and he has a composite sketch made of the attacker. And then on this sheet that showed the attacker, there was a description of the vehicle and where it was located and some details of the case. And so Detective Klossing releases this sketch and the information to the media, and he puts it around town, and he's expecting someone in town to know who this person is because the description is so good. And someone would come forward. On July 16th, so one day after Jesse had been killed, a deputy from the Washington County Sheriff Department, he came forward and said, "Hey, I saw your flyer and I read the description Melissa gave about the type of vehicle this person was using, and I have seen that vehicle parked in the exact same spot in that park. I was there a couple of weeks ago. I saw it there. There was something weird about it. The driver was acting strange. And so I actually ran the license plates to see if there was some outstanding warrants or something going on with this person. But after I ran the plates, nothing came up. And so I kind of just forgot about it. But now I've read this description and I'm pretty convinced it's the same exact vehicle. And so I can pull those plates that I ran and we can see who owned that vehicle, and maybe it's a match." And so the deputy, he pulls up the information that he had pulled from the license plates of the van he had seen a couple of weeks earlier. And when they looked at the owner of that minivan, there was just no way they matched the description that Melissa gave. It just could not be the same person. And so briefly, Detective Klossing and the deputy believed that, okay, it was just some big coincidence that a very similar blue minivan was parked in the exact same spot a couple of weeks apart. But when Detective Klossing looked a little bit deeper into who the owner of that vehicle was, he would discover they had a relative that matched exactly the description that Melissa gave of her attacker. And so on the afternoon of July 16th, so one day after Jesse has been killed, Detective Klossing tracks down the phone number of the relative who looks exactly like the attacker, and he punches that number into his cell phone, and he put the phone to his ear. At the same time, 10 miles to the northwest, Buck and Joy Blodgett were hosting a vigil for their daughter in their home. And so all of Jesse's very close friends and family, they were all there in the living room, and they were sitting around in a big circle, crying together, grieving together, and then also sharing their favorite memories of Jesse. And so while they're all doing that, a phone starts to ring inside of this circle. And And the owner of that phone, 19-year-old Daniel Bartelt, who was a very close friend of Jesse's and who had spent much of that summer coming over to the Blodgett household to make original music with Jesse, he stands up and he walks quietly away from the group, and then he answers the phone, and it's Detective Clausing asking Daniel to come into the station to talk about Melissa Richards.
Oh, no. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? Damn. Just damn. And I bet you anything, he was what we call a nice guy.
Daniel would make his way to the police station that afternoon, and he would be interviewed by Detective Clausing and another detective. And even though they had brought Daniel in to talk to him about Melissa Richards, it was not lost on these detectives how strange it was that Daniel is at the home of a recently murdered young woman where that case is unsolved, and he is now the suspect of another attack on another young woman that happened only a couple of days earlier and only a couple of miles away. And so as soon as Daniel sits down, Detective Clausing kind of casually asks him, hey, why were you at Jesse Blodgett's house when I called you? And Daniel would say, well, I'm very close with Jesse, and so we were there as part of her vigil because she was killed yesterday. And so the detective kind of did gradually shift to Melissa Richards, which Daniel would say he had nothing to do with. But as they began asking him questions about Melissa, Detective Clausing and the other detective noticed that there were cuts on Daniel's hands. And so they kind of cut him off and they asked Daniel, how'd you get these cuts on your hands? And Daniel was very quick to say, well, I got them at work. A screw kind of jutted out and cut my hands. I move inventory around in a back room of an engineering company. That's my job. And, I just cut my hand at work. And so at that point, the police began really asking very pointed questions about exactly how he hurt his hands and what exactly did he do at his job. And at some point, when it just seemed like there was something off about his story about how he hurt himself, one of the detectives just says to Daniel, if I were to call your employer, this engineering company, would they say you, Daniel, are currently employed with them? And Daniel, he kind of paused for a minute and then said, no, I actually lost my job several weeks ago. And so now the detectives knew he had to be lying about how he cut his hand because he's just told them that he hurt it at work recently, but he wasn't employed recently. And so Detective Clausing kind of leans in and says, Daniel, so how'd you really hurt your hand? And so Daniel, he begins talking about how he cut it cooking. And Detective Clausing is like, Daniel, nobody would lie about cutting their hand cooking. So why don't you just tell us the truth? And amazingly, Daniel would. He would admit, after some serious pressure, that he hurt himself attacking Melissa Richards. He told detectives that after he lost his job a few weeks earlier, he didn't want his parents to know he had lost his job. And so he had just continued getting up early and leaving the house and coming back later in the day, kind of acting like he had been at work all day, when in reality, all he was doing was driving around town and sometimes going to parks and just sitting in parking spots in parks. And so on July 12th, the day that Melissa was attacked, that's exactly what Daniel was doing. He was pretending to be at work by sitting in that parking space in that dirt lot in Richfield. And at some point, he saw Melissa and he decided he just wanted to attack her. He told detectives that recently he had become overwhelmed in college, and so he had dropped out, and then he lost his job. And so combined, he was just feeling kind of scared of life. That's how he described it. And so he wanted somebody else to feel scared too. And so that was why he said he attacked Melissa. But
misery loves company. Misery loves company. That's always how it's been. All right, let me read the chat. Brandon Peters. People who are scared or don't want to do the job shouldn't be given it. Exactly. Brandon. Hi, that's my dog's name. Rena Harwood. Welcome to the live stream. Red light, green light. That's hilarious. That is hilarious. Brandon Peters 4 times. Oh man, knife attack. At Rena, laugh out loud. Brandon Peters. Well, I guess he might not have had it out the first time, maybe. Well, anyone running up to you like that, always be on guard. Doesn't matter who it is. Brandon Peters. Speaking of open carry, I saw a guy at Waffle House who had a gun on his belt, and I was thinking that anyone could walk by and grab it, especially because there wasn't any strap safety on the holster. Well, it depends on the kind of holster, right? If it's a slick holster and you could just pull the weapon out of it, that's definitely not a very good holster. But a holster with a strap means that you have to undo the strap to pull out the weapon to employ the weapon. And that is dangerous for the person that has that weapon, because it means there are precious extra seconds for them to, unsafe their weapon to engage a threat. There are types of holsters that are not slick holsters, and they have a locking mechanism on them, such as what police usually employ. I have a holster right here, just like it. And it's a Momix. It's an Momix hip holster. It's got the little thing. It goes over the pant line and over the belt, but it has like these right here to like make sure it doesn't slip up and down and it stays where it's at. And there is a button right here to actually pull the weapon out. So if someone comes up and tries to just yank the weapon, it's going to stay on my hip. And when the weapon is inside the holster, you got to put quite a bit of pressure on this button. And even then, if you don't pull it perfectly straight out, if someone's just grabbing the handle of the weapon, it's not going to come out of the holster. It's not going to slip out. I have to grab it a very specific way to ensure I can pull the weapon out of the holster. And I train on doing exactly that. So now, like, my weapon draw is within it's within like tenths of a second. That's my draw time. So yeah, this is not a slick holster. But if someone has a slick holster, that's usually a bad idea. What's up, Ricky? Brandon Peters, dang, it was Daniel. Yes, dang. All right, let's get back to the live streams video.
Despite admitting to this vicious, violent crime against Melissa Richards, Daniel, when asked if he had any connection to the Jesse Blodgett murder, he would say, absolutely not. I love Jesse. I would never hurt her. But when Detective Klossing reached out to Detective Thickens of the Hartford Police and told them you should look at Daniel as a potential suspect in your murder case, it would quickly come to light that Daniel was lying again. Daniel was raised in a good, loving family. He was extremely smart, straight-A student. He was an incredible musician, and he was really well respected by his peers and even by his teachers and other instructors. I mean, this was a kid who had everything going for him. But something went wrong with Daniel, and no one knows exactly why. Shortly before he attacked Melissa, Daniel had become obsessed with killing and death and murder. His internet search history shows that he spent a lot of time looking for actual snuff videos online. Those are videos of actual murder. He also spent a lot of time looking up serial killers and spree killers, and he was especially interested in anybody who killed lots and lots of women. And finally, right before he would attack Melissa, Daniel, based on his search history, had discovered this one particular pornographic snuff film, and it was of this woman who was all tied up and hogtied, and after being assaulted, she was strangled. And Daniel watched this video over and over and over and over again, On that day, July 12th, as Daniel is pretending to be at work, he's sitting in his car, he looks out and he sees Melissa, she's all alone, and something clicks in his head where he decides he's going to go reenact that wretched pornographic snuff film on Melissa. And
he has a very severely punchable face. Or hammerable face. Sick and freaking twisted, y'all. Sick and twisted.
so Melissa was likely just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Recovered in that dirt parking lot after the attack was this special, very strong tape that had been in Daniel's pockets during the attack. It had just fallen out. And so it's believed he was going to use that tape to subdue Melissa and then abduct her. But obviously, Melissa fought back, and Daniel got spooked and ran off. 3 days later, on July 15th, it's believed that Daniel decided he wanted to try again. He wanted to act out this pornographic snuff film, but in real life. And this time, he wasn't going to leave it up to some random victim. He needed his victim to be totally helpless. He needed his victim not to fight back. And who better than 19-year-old Jesse Blodgett, his close friend who inherently trusted him and would easily let him into her house, into her bedroom. It wouldn't matter if she was all alone because she felt safe around him, based on eyewitness testimony of someone who was driving through.
So he was a nice guy. And I don't mean nice as in like he's actually a genuine good dude. I mean the moniker nice guy.
Through the Blodgett neighborhood on the morning that Jesse was killed. It's believed Daniel arrived in the driveway of the Blodgett household just a few minutes after Buck and Joy had left for work. And so he pulled into the driveway knowing that Jesse was all alone. We don't know exactly what happened inside of that house. We don't know if Jesse came down and opened the door or if she was still upstairs sleeping. But Daniel, he entered the house, and when he went inside, he was prepared for what he was about to do. He literally had a bag full of supplies. Things like that special tape, there were ligatures, cords, ropes, there was alcohol wipes, zip ties. And so he makes his way upstairs to Jesse's bedroom. And then once he's in there, we don't know if Jesse was awake or sleeping at this time, but either way, Daniel jumped on top of her and immediately put a homemade ball gag into her mouth and then wrapped that special tape around her head to make sure the gag stayed in her mouth. And then once she couldn't make a sound, he bound her wrists and her ankles and he hogtied her, and then he viciously assaulted her. And then after he was done, he wrapped some cord around her neck and he strangled her to death. After she was deceased, Daniel attempted to clean her body with some alcohol wipes. And then after that, he kind of repositioned her in her bed with the covers up over her to give the appearance that she was still sleeping to her parents when they inevitably would find her. Then Daniel rounded up all of his murder supplies back into his bag, except he did accidentally leave one of those special rolls of tape underneath Jesse's bed. And then he slipped out of the Blodgett household. And then he drove to Woodlawn Park, where he disposed of his supplies into one of the trash cans. The next day at Jesse's vigil, Daniel would attend, and according to the other people that were there, Daniel was by far the most talkative person in that circle. Daniel would ultimately be found guilty of murdering Jesse Blodgett, although he never admitted guilt. In fact, during the sentencing phase, Buck Blodgett would give this incredibly eloquent and heart-wrenching speech about what it was like to lose his only child. And toward the end of this speech, Buck turned to his right, so away from the judge who he had been addressing, and he looked directly at Daniel. And Daniel looked back at him, and Buck says, "Dan, I forgive you as I have every day since I found out it was you." And then a few moments later, Buck would also say to Dan, "Dan, not only do I forgive you, but I love you." But when Daniel got his turn to stand up and say something on his behalf, he turned to face Buck and Joy, and looking right at them, he would tell them that he's innocent and that he doesn't have any answers for them because he didn't do it and his conscience is clear. Daniel
Straight up human evil right there, y'all. Human evil. And yes, evil is human.
Daniel was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and as far as we know, he still denies having killed Jesse, despite the mountain of evidence against him. In the days following Jesse's death, Buck Blodgett walked into his daughter's bedroom, and he laid down on her bed, and looking straight up, he tried to hold his breath for as long as he possibly could. And as he began to struggle, he started to imagine what it was like for his poor daughter in her final moments as she's being murdered. And it just crushed him. He thought to himself, I wasn't there for my little girl when she needed me the most. But instead of just carrying that terrible burden around with him for the rest of his life, Buck and his family decided they had to do something to honor their daughter's memory and maybe even change the world, which was something that Jesse always talked about wanting to do. And so Buck would go on to start the Love is Greater Than Hate project, which is this incredible charity whose mission is designed to end male on female violence and to inspire love over hate. Buck's charity is a recipient of a MrBallen Foundation grant, and if you have been moved by the story in some way, I would highly encourage you to contribute to Buck's charity. You can find the link to their website below where you can donate.
My whole life changed radically as a result of severe violence against my daughter, and then it changed even more radically after I responded to that violence with love and forgiveness. Buck Blodgett, founder of the Love Over Hate Project. I'll say this much. I mean, it's good intention. It's good intentions. He's doing something. But here's the thing. I'm going to break the illusion right now. There's going to be no charity, no organization, no authority, no power. There is literally only you and what you choose to do in between yourself and what possibilities of bad things that could happen to you. That's it. That's all. It's well intentioned, and hey, I don't blame people for wanting to give to the charity to feel good about it, to feel like you're trying to do something. But here's the big problem. Unfortunately, it's not going to accomplish much. They never do. They can't. The scale is beyond any one possible thing. Way beyond. This is why I talk to people about individual responsibility, accountability, all the way down. Because it is the individual that at scale affects the outcome. And unfortunately, there's way too many people for something like this to actually have as large of a change as people want it to have. It comes down to the individual every time. And what I said earlier stands. Everybody was defenseless. Everybody. Every single person. All the police can do is react. That's it. They can't prevent anything. Police, law, the justice system, these are all meant to be supplementary to us providing our safety and security for ourselves first. And this should be something ingrained into your kids if you have them. So yeah, Unfortunately, stuff like this, it's not going to accomplish much. No matter how good intention it is, how much you want it to affect the outcome, how good it feels to give to it and be like, I'm contributing something. Unfortunately, the best thing you can do as an individual is not be another victim. And that's all. That's what I'll say about it.
So that's going to do it. If you got something out of today's,
I don't know if y'all noticed, but MrBallen got a little broken up for a second. You know, he's got a couple of daughters, so I can only imagine how this was for him. I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
episode and you haven't done this already, please ask the like button to help you move out of your apartment and offer to pay them in beer and pizza. When they accept and the move is complete, only serve O'Doul's and anchovy pizza. Also, please.
What's wrong with anchovies? I like anchovies. I also like putting ghost pepper sauce on a lot of my food, so maybe I can't really talk. But there we go, folks. There we go. All right. Looks like it's chat time. So let's see what's going on in the chat. Brandon Peters. Okay, I'm back from getting my grandma some chips and dip. Aren't you a good boy? Brandon Peters. That guy looks like a weirdo. I concur. Rena Harwood. He looks like a rat in glasses. Yep. Brandon Peters. Nah, he doesn't deserve forgiveness or love. Only a long walk off a short boardwalk. Yep. Brandon Peters. At least he started a charity, so that's good. Yes. Brandon Peters. Everything is made of smaller things, from atoms to society and nations. The whole cosmos is made of small things, which makes bigger things. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Exactly. Brandon Peters. No, only cheese and pepperoni pizza. Everything else is evil. Oh man. Oh man. I miss pizza. But it's probably going to be a while before I take the chance of eating any ever again. Because y'all know how I am. I suffer when I eat stuff that's not related to an animal in some way. So, yeah. Okay, y'all. Let's see what time it is. 15:40. I got some time for games. So, let me do this real fast. Okay. I will be here after the live stream. Okay, so there's the link-a-dink. All right, so that's where I'll be after this live stream. Brandon Peters, what do you think of MREs? They're not bad. They're not bad. You know, they will fill you up, but they'll also kind of mess you up. It's MREs are like super condensed meals. Yeah. Not all of them are very good, though. Unlucky Meteor. I've had a 3-day conversation with a British friend on Facebook, basically arguing for gun bans in the U.S. It's near impossible to explain the need for self-defense here. Yep. But here's the thing. Look, here's my thing on it. Look, if you want to be a victim, that's up to you. That's up to you. If you choose to be defenseless, you choose not to take up safety and security as a personal responsibility, then that's on you. Yes, the perpetrators, the evil humans that we have, are partly to blame. But if you make yourself a willing victim of those people, which is what you choose to do, that's on you. That is on you. And a lot of people can hate me for that if they want, but that's the reality. That is the reality. So, yeah. Think of me what you will, but I will never be a victim. Not ever. My son won't be a victim, and any kids I have after him will not be victims. Every one of them is going to be trained. They're going to understand personal safety and security. And on top of that, they're gonna learn how reality works. I'm not going to allow them to enter into this complacency bubble that everybody else refuses to leave. That's not going to happen. My kids are going to be fighters. They're going to be fighters, warriors, brave, and strong. There will be no victims in my household. All right. So, let me see. Brandon Peters, being full for once would be nice. Unlucky meteor. People all over Europe don't have a Mexican border, and cartel smuggling crates of illegal weapons into the country every day. How you going to ban those illegal guns? It's ridiculous. I got 12 little 9mm friends to protect me and the gun on my nightstand. Make sure you train on it. Make sure you train on it. Train on your weapons. Or find somebody to train you on them. Always. So, yeah. All right, y'all. Well, this has been a rough house of a video. A serious rough house of a video. But you know what? We need these cautionary tales. People need to wake up. And wokeness is the opposite of waking up, actually. Unfortunately. Anyway. All right, folks. So unless y'all have anything else for me right now, I'll be on Twitch for a little bit. Just playing with the boys, having some fun. Moving around in big giant metal toys. That kind of stuff. So you wanna see me after this? Click the link, give it a follow, click the notification heart thingy, and yeah. Also, maybe I should mention this anyway. I'll tell you all this much: it's not very cost effective to keep on streaming. I'm trying to figure other stuff out. But unfortunately, I'm losing more than anything else trying to stick with this. That's the unfortunate reality of it. It takes a lot of time and effort that I could be spending on other things. I've tried doing that, and even that's a bit of a struggle. So, yeah, there's questions about the channel's existence that are really pressing on my mind right now. So, yeah. I don't know what to do about it, honestly. And, I might not give up on it entirely, but, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, y'all know what time it is. You like this reaction? You like MrBallen? You like me? Then be good. Seriously, be good. There's enough pain, anguish, and suffering in the world. We don't need to add to it. Be safe. Don't compromise your safety and security for anything. Doesn't matter if it's a place you work at. Doesn't matter if it's a place you live in. If they make you compromise your safety and security and make you a victim of evil humans, leave that place of work, move out of that place, go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. And make a good life for yourselves. And you can't do that if you end up a victim of somebody else. So, that being said, I'll be on Twitch in a little bit. This is Blast Cat Badger. Out.